Now at 10, early in-person voting gets underway in the Show Me State. Plus, voters in Crawford County get a look at the candidates running for sheriff. And a Carthage man pleads guilty in connection with a fatal DWI crash in Joplin from 2022.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Election Day is 2 weeks away, but Missouri voters are already heading to the polls. This is KOAM News at 10. I'm Dow Quick. Early voters gathered at the Jasper County Courthouse to take advantage of the chance to vote early. Just like on Election Day voting, early voters do need to bring a form of ID. Acceptable forms of ID include a Missouri driver's or non-driver's license, military ID, or U.S. passport.
Is going to be the biggest election, and there are going to be lines. We have a couple polling locations that are notoriously for having long lines for people who want to vote on Election Day. And what this does is this prevents you from having to stand in those long lines.
The county clerk reminds the public that early voting is just as secure as Election Day voting. Early in-person voting is well underway in Kansas. Some places it began Saturday. Voters cast ballots at the Bicknell Center in Pittsburgh today, where a poll worker says turnout was well ahead of what they typically see for early voting. Early polling locations will change from day to day in various Kansas counties. In Oklahoma, early voting starts Wednesday of next week, October 30th. When you head to the polls, you're going to see a lot of names on your ballot, but we want to help you to learn more about the candidates you'll be voting for, this time those running for Crawford County Sheriff. Danny Smith is running for re-election after being sworn into the position in April of 2019. Smith is opposed by Billy Tomasi, who has more than 30 years of law enforcement experience. Most recently as a deputy in Crawford County, serving as a school resource officer. Both candidates say one thing they hope to address is the area's struggle with drugs.
If deputies are doing traffic enforcement or working investigations, they're going to come across these cases, and they're going to make their arrests and try to get those drugs off our streets.
We still have a homeless population. Has to do with the drugs and has to do with mental health. And we got to get out there and get them both help for the addiction and the mental health. And you got to start. You can't just wait for them to come to you.
You can hear more from both candidates on our website, koamnewsnow.com. To find voting information for your area, just scan this QR code. It'll take you to election resources on our website. Of course, that is koamnewsnow.com. You'll be able to find all sorts of election information, including polling places and schedules. You can even check to see if you're registered to vote. Nationwide, more than 19 million voters have cast ballots in person or by mail in the presidential race. Both candidates are keeping a tight focus on the battleground states. Natalie Brand has the latest from the campaign trail.
Former President Donald Trump rallied in battleground North Carolina Tuesday, visiting the state for the second day in a row, criticizing the federal response to Hurricane Helene.
Well, they haven't had much help from our government in Washington, I can tell you that.
Before taking the stage, The Atlantic magazine published these alleged remarks from Trump in the Oval Office 4 years ago, discussing a bill the White House received for the funeral of Vanessa Guillen, a 20-year-old Army private and daughter of Mexican immigrants who was killed by a fellow soldier at Fort Hood. Trump had offered to pay for the funeral. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury an effing Mexican, it quotes Trump as saying, "Don't pay it." Guillen's sister says Vanessa's death is being exploited for politics, while several of the former president's White House aides claim the Atlantic report is absolutely false. The report dropped on the same day that Trump held a roundtable for Latino voters at his golf club in Miami.
Do you think the country is ready now for a woman and a woman of color to be president?
Absolutely.
Vice President Kamala Harris had a sit-down interview with NBC News and said she had no olive branches to offer Republicans with regard to abortion rights.
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
She was off the campaign trail Tuesday, but got an assist from former President Barack Obama, who hit 2 battleground states, Michigan and Wisconsin, on her behalf.
But what I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you.
Early voting is underway in most states, and about 13% of eligible voters have already cast a ballot. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
The Georgia Supreme Court today unanimously rejected an appeal from Republicans trying to reinstate multiple state election rules before Election Day. Last week, a local judge declared them, quote, illegal, unconstitutional, and void. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Doug Heddy now for a first look at the weather.
Well, it definitely turned out to be a warm one for us today. In fact, record. Down the road here in a bit.
Pittsburgh City Commissioners take a tour of a downtown property that's getting quite a makeover. The reason is coming up. Plus, a sign company in Southeast Kansas helps shine a light on some area businesses. A Carthage man pleads guilty for his role in a fatal DWI crash that happened more than 2 years ago. Joseph Hill was 19 years old at the time of that crash in July of 2022. Joplin police say he was driving under the influence when he overturned near Grand Falls in Joplin. That crash killed 19-year-old Keenan Reed. A third person in the vehicle was taken to the hospital. The Joplin Police Department arrested Hill after determining he was intoxicated while driving. Prosecutors originally charged Hill with DWI, death of another, assault second degree, and driving while revoked or suspended. As part of the plea deal, the second and third charges were dismissed. Hill's sentencing is scheduled for January. The Miners Hall Museum in Franklin, Kansas draws thousands of visitors every year with its showcase of Southeast Kansas mining history, but a federal program will allow the museum to improve its preservation efforts. CAPS, the Collection Assessment for Preservation, is a federal assessment program designed to work with and evaluate museums' preservation efforts. Museum personnel say they welcome the assistance.
Big thing we're working on now, in addition to the ideas, is fundraising to support. If you apply for a grant, you've got to be able to show that you can match that and support the endeavor, after those grant funds are spent.
Only 71 sites were chosen across the country to receive CAPS assistance. Pittsburgh City Commissioners this afternoon toured a downtown property that's in the process of getting quite a facelift. Lorenz House development recently bought the old Audacious Boutique at 2nd and Broadway. Crews are currently working to separate the first floor into 4 units accessible through a courtyard and then add luxury housing on the second floor.
These buildings are really difficult and costly to rehabilitate, and so it is definitely a passion. And really, it's great to have collaborators like the Historic Society and other entities that can help make these projects possible from a funding standpoint.
Lorenz says her development group is partnering with the city for funding reimbursement for a portion of that project. She says they originally planned to pursue a grant alongside the city, but they're no longer doing that. Tonight, commissioners watched a KDOT presentation on the latest US 69 study. Participants completed 369 surveys indicating the biggest concerns for improvement are intersection layout, traffic flow along the Pittsburgh bypass, and traffic signal enhancements. Commissioners also voted to put in a 4-way stop at the intersections of 5th and Pine and 6th and Pine due to parked cars creating blind spots for drivers. If you do drive through Pittsburgh, you might notice more and more neon signs popping up. KOAM's Lonnie Walton tracked down one of the companies responsible. He shows us how these iconic signs are made.
Here at Sign Brothers, we do a little bit of everything, but there's not very many businesses around that do neon, and that is something that we focus on.
Josh Young is the graphic manager at Sign Brothers. He says finding a neonist, the person who creates neon lights, may be a little difficult.
We have an in-house neonist, and he bends the neon right here at Sign Brothers.
That's right, meet Chris LaForge, the store's only neonist. He learned the trade from his late father. He says he enjoys making all types of signage.
Well, they usually tell me what they want, and I can sit down and draw it up. I can paint and draw, and I drew these out.
Now, this is the place where all the production takes place, but watch out. LaForte says it can get a little hot.
It gets really hot back here, so I have to shut off the fires for a little bit and turn them back on. Is this the way it is?
Frank Captudo from Jim's Steak and Chop House says he changed the signage a little, but keeping its nostalgic value is a must.
Sign is, it still had the original neon tubes in it, and we had them redone. We had the sign repainted and all the interior wiring redone.
Both Young and LaForte say they love their jobs, but they still have to keep a lookout for certain things.
The hardest part of my job is trying not to get cut or burned.
And there's one really inappropriate sign they asked me for, but I don't think you can put that on TV.
Reporting in Pittsburgh, I'm Lonnie Walton, KOAM News.
Young says he can't wait to do more projects throughout the 4 states, keeping the neon nostalgia alive. A little bit later, some students in McDonald County received training for handling school bus emergencies.
Plus, after record highs for us today, we're actually going to cool down a little bit as we go into Wednesday. Details coming up. Well, it definitely turned out to be kind of warm / hot for us today. Record highs, upper 80s to near 90 degrees, which we should be topping out into the upper 60s for this time of the year. So 2 weeks ago, we had record highs. Last week, we had record lows. This week, we go back to the record highs. So all over the place. Looks good right now. Nice shot of our indigo sky. Casino and resort. Look at these temps during the afternoon. So we had mid 80s, Missouri and also Arkansas. But once you get into Oklahoma and Kansas, we had near 90, if not lower 90s for highs. Of course, we're dropping back now. We can check out Columbus at 69, 66, Chautauqua, Afton is at 67 degrees. Then you got Seneca 67, Sarcoxy is sitting at 68 degrees. 7th and Rangeline sitting at 69 right now. Our southerly winds will keep our temps up a little bit for us tonight, so upper 50s to near 60, but watch what happens tomorrow. Here comes a cold front, slides in during the morning hours, so we get kind of a brisk northeasterly wind. It kind of ushers in a little bit cooler air, so we're still going to be well above normal, but we're going to be 8-9 degrees cooler tomorrow than what we saw today. Winds are going to crank back out of the south as we get into Thursday, and guess what? Once again, near record highs by the time Thursday afternoon rolls around. Through the night, 71 by 11, 56 by 7, back to 66 by 10 a.m. Clear skies, nothing going on here. In fact, the entire Central Plains is pretty calm. Here's our jet stream to our north. We do have weak waves, which are going to be kind of passing through, giving us those cold fronts, but we don't have any big storm systems, at least over the next couple days, but we do have some rain chances, which is good. All right, by morning, mid to upper 50s, a little bit cooler tomorrow. So we're going to be into the mid 70s by noon. Most of us near 80. A little bit cooler northern counties, upper 70s, a little bit warmer southern counties into lower 80s. Tomorrow night, some clouds increase. We may get a random stray shower or two in here by Thursday morning. Not a big deal, but just a random shower passing through. And then look at our temps back into the upper 80s again by Thursday afternoon. Thursday night, here comes the next front. Thunderstorms develop along the I-35 corridor and try to get in here. They're going to start to fall apart, but I definitely think we're going to get some scattered thunderstorms on the Kansas side, and hopefully we'll get some that push through the region because we definitely need some rain. Any thunderstorms that we would see, these will be out of here by the time Friday morning rolls around. All right, on Wednesday, 56 to start, 75 by noon. High temp, 79 degrees. With that front with the thunderstorms Thursday night, we cool back down a little bit, lower 80s on Friday. Check out the weekend. Look at this, northeasterly winds, lower 70s Saturday. We go back to the upper 70s by Sunday, but the whole weekend is going to be fantastic. And then we should pop back into the 80s as we go into next week. If we look at the big picture, here's the jet stream. Remember, all the storm systems, they like to hang out where the jet stream is. It's getting stronger this time of the year. It gets stronger all the way till late January, and as it does so, it will start to shift south, and we'll see bigger storm systems that drop in the western third of the country like we start to see next week, and that increases our activity with the pattern. 79 on Wednesday, 88 near record highs Thursday, 80 Friday. Weekend looks fantastic. Some rain chances again next week.
Chances, something at least, but
we need some guarantees.
We really do.
Yes.
We need to have quite a bit, in fact. Thanks, Doug. Hey, take a look at this newly released surveillance video out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. It shows two bus passengers rushing toward the front of a bus as soon as they notice the driver experiencing a medical emergency. One of the passengers quickly proceeds to steer the bus and bring it to a stop. Authorities report the driver did pass away despite emergency responders' efforts, and that no passengers were injured during that incident. The McDonald County, Missouri School District rolled into National School Bus Safety Week with a unique and hands-on training exercise. The new program, Bus Helpers, empowers selected students to assist bus drivers in the case of one of those emergencies. With parental permission and approval from school personnel, these students receive training on critical emergency procedures, including how to stop the bus, use the radio, and operate the safety equipment on board.
Students are selected by the driver himself as responsible students that are willing to help with that in case of emergency. So yes, they're hand-selected by the drivers.
The training is part of the district's ongoing efforts to create a safer environment for all students during transportation. Still ahead, Pitt State Gorillas. They're named the Special Teams Player of the Week. One particular Gorilla is anyway. And Missouri Southern basketball hosts its preseason tip-off event. John Dales has those stories and more up next.
Missouri Southern men's and women's basketball are less than 3 weeks away from starting their 2024-25 seasons. Tonight, Lions fans get their first look at both teams. Missouri Southern basketball hosts its annual Meet the Lions event this evening. The MSSU men's and women's teams take the floor at Leggett and Platt Athletic Center and get introduced to the fans for the first time. The women's team holds a three-point shootout where seniors Caitlin Honeycutt and Morgan Myers tie. That leads to a half-court shootout to break the tie, which Myers wins on that shot. Now, the men's team holds a dunk contest, but not really much of a contest when Tyreek Brooks steals the show. He's a true freshman from Springfield Central High School. First, as you're about to see, he goes one-handed, jumping over three of his teammates. That gets everybody fired up in the arena. Then they chanted for him to do more, so he swaps them out for his 6'10" teammate Sam Thompson, and that works too. The Lions men's team plays its first game on November 8th. The women get started 6 days earlier on the 2nd. Well, yesterday we had a ton of our local high school volleyball teams win regional championships all across Southeast Kansas. Sub-state tournaments are this Saturday. Now here's a look at some of the regional champs and runners-up from our area that'll be participating in sub-state this weekend. Had to finish first or second at regionals to get to this point. In Class 2A, Southeast will host a quad with Colgan, Central Christian, and Leon Bluestem over in Cherokee. Then Erie and Northeast Arma will be headed to Sedgwick as the 3 and 4 seeds in that tournament. We got a bunch more of our local schools in Class 3A that'll move on to sub-state. Girard will be the top seed in a tournament on its own floor, with Humboldt, who also won a regional championship, Prairie View and Jayhawk Lynn rounding that one out. Frontenac is another regional champ on its home court, along with Riverton and Galena as the 2 and 3 seeds. The Lady Rams were also regional champs, and Neodesha 1 seed on its home floor in that quad. It includes Caney Valley. All of these tournaments take place this Saturday. Well, Pittsburgh State football will play its second top 10 matchup of the season this Saturday as the Gorillas head to Edmond, Oklahoma to face UCO. And Week 7 of the AFCA Division II coaches poll has the Gorillas move up 1 spot. They're now number 6 in the country, and this comes after the defending national champion Harding loses its first game of the season on the road to Ouachita Baptist. Central Oklahoma, who the Gorillas see Saturday, they move up 2 spots from 11 to 9. Broncos narrowly escaped Northeastern State this weekend to remain undefeated. And Emporia State is the only other ranked team from the MIAA. Currently, they are number 14 in the nation. Well, Pittsburgh State sixth-year senior Gentry Cole is named MIAA Special Teams Player of the Week. This coincides with Cole having his first 2 successful field goal attempts of his 6-year career against Fort Hays State on Saturday. Now, Cole's usually a kickoff specialist, but he's filling in for the injured Austin Schmidt. While doing so, went 2 for 2 on field goals from 49 and 27 yards, getting PSU its only points of the first half. Back to some of that basketball action that we saw in Joplin. I think Lions fans have a lot to be excited about with this year's teams, both the men and women's side. A lot of fresh faces and a lot of hope.
Yeah, and boy, Brooks was so amazing on those slam dunks.
Yeah,
huh?
very much so.
He got some serious air there. We'll be right back. It was hot today, and it's going to be at least warm a bit longer.
Yeah, at least we're cooling down a little bit tomorrow, but still it's 10 degrees above our average high, 79. Back to near record highs on Thursday, back down to 80 on Friday. Now, we do have a chance to get some scattered thunderstorms in here Thursday night into Friday. We really need to keep our fingers crossed on that one.
Nice if they were more than scattered. Final sports notes.
High school golf state championships are taking place early this week in both Kansas and Missouri, and the Colgan girls team tonight takes home the team state title.
Wow, congratulations to the Colgan girls. Thanks for joining us. Morning show starts at 5 a.m. Let's make it a great tomorrow.